In this video, I will be showing you how to resolder a LiPo battery. If one of the wires on your balancing circuit came undone, then you've come to the right place. The tools I will use to do this will be an X-Acto knife, a soldering iron, and a flathead screwdriver. I want to make a very important disclaimer before we get started. Doing such a task when opening a LiPo battery is extremely dangerous. There can be cases of fires and explosions, so please do this at your own risk. But if you are very young and inexperienced with the hobby or use of tools, then do not attempt this task. Now, without further ado, let's get into it. The first step I will be doing is removing the broken balancing wire from the balancing connector. So I'm just going to use my flathead screwdriver and push down on this part of the balance connector a lot, while also pulling the wire out. This can take a few tries, but eventually you'll get it. You don't have to do this, but it just gives you a little bit more room. Alright, there we go. Now we're just going to save this wire for later. The next step can be very dangerous because we're going to be removing this yellow case around it. It's not a hard case, however, we still need to remove it to access all these different terminals on the end of the LiPo. So we're going to use our X-Acto knife and cut it on the side with the wires going out, but do not, I repeat, do not touch these wires. It is very important you do not short circuit the battery, otherwise there's a good chance that there could be an explosion and a failure of the entire battery. So as you can see, I've already opened this up once. So I'm just going to cut against the Scotch tape, and I'm just going to do this very lightly. If it doesn't cut through the first time, then try it again, because you do not want to use too much force. And then once you have it cut, you're just going to remove this plastic. The terminals on LiPos can vary based on the design and capacity, but for this one, they're all insulated by this piece of tape and some foam on the inside. So we're just going to take that off with our fingernail. We're also going to save it for later, so don't get it all messy. And this is where it starts to get dangerous. The terminals are being exposed. If you happen to be using metal across these when you resolder them, you want to make sure that you do not connect any of these points together. I'm just going to set all this stuff off to the side, as well as all the other tape that is holding the terminals together. But once again, just make sure that you're not touching them. There's also another piece of foam right here. So next to this red wire, I can see the remains of that balancing wire. I can see exactly where it is. So that's where we need to resolder that wire. So I'm going to strip about 1/2 centimeter of wire off of this balancing wire. And then we're going to put some solder in it and get it ready to be prepared to be soldered back onto the LiPo. With the balancing wire ready to be resoldered to the LiPo, I'm going to do something just to help out a little bit more. Right here I have some solder paste stuff, or rosin will also work, and I'm just going to coat the end of the wire in this stuff, as well as put a little bit on the end of the terminal on the LiPo. Now this is probably the most dangerous and quick part of this whole process. When I'm resoldering this, I want to make sure I keep this soldering iron as far as away from each individual terminal as possible, because if they both touch together, there's a good chance that they're going to short circuit, and I've explained what that does before. But now, we're just going to take our wire, line it up where you think it used to be before, and then just resolder it. Awesome, now that's where the balancing wire should be. Before we reassemble everything, I just want to make sure that all the connections are made properly. So we're going to take our balancing wire and slide it back into the balancing connector. Push it in all the way. Also use your flathead screwdriver. And you could use a voltmeter Or I have one of these LiPo checker things in case you don't have low voltage detection built into your ESC. So I'm just going to plug this in. And it's reading it as a 3-cell LiPo. So now we can reassemble it knowing that it's working correctly. So all these pieces of foam can go in between the terminals. It doesn't really matter if it's the same place, just make sure they're in between the terminals. Here we go. Those are not going to be touching together now. We're going to take our pieces of tape and put them over and make sure that everything's going to be held in place. Believe this piece of tape is not sticky anymore, so we can just throw that out. And we're going to use this larger piece of tape to cover up the entire thing. Just make sure everything is centered. And just stick it back all together. And there we go. Now all I have to do is put the plastic back on and we're done. And then to cover up the slit we cut in between it, I'm just going to use some Scotch tape, although a better option would be to just cover the entire thing in duct tape or something like that. But being that I need to put this in a compact space, I want something nice and thin. Alright, there we go. That's how you resolder your LiPo battery. If you found this useful, please give it a like. But for now, I am done.